We're live.
We're live. Here
Hello,
we are. Hi,
everyone.
everybody.
I guess we're live. It's Roy and Val, and we're joining you from our Lansing Creativity Center. And so today we wanted to do something a little bit different.
It's like
so,
-5.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's really.
Just so you know.
It's really cold. So
It is so cold here.
yeah.
Probably where a lot of people are, but
we had to crank the heat up in this room for sure.
right.
So we wanted to do something a little different. So if you're one of our regulars and joining us, we appreciate it. But we wanted to talk to mainly business owners. It's kind of our B2B. We're thinking we're going to do some of these Facebook Lives that are geared towards those of you that are in business, or maybe you're thinking about starting up a glass business. So in particular today, that what we wanted to talk about a little bit about was classes. You know, about adding classes to your business or to your studio.
We sometimes, because Roy and I both teach classes here and have for quite a few years, we do get a lot of business owners who take classes for the intent of offering them in their own businesses or own home studios, and so that's kind of why we thought maybe we just hit a few high points of what we do with our classes, or what you might want to think about when you set up for classes.
Yeah, especially if you're new and you're just starting up. Yeah, we just thought we'd offer up a little bit of advice. And of course, we're available. If you have questions, today you can always, make a comment below, or you can always email us at Facebook@Delphi.
Yeah, Kayla, she just is like holding her breath.
Or you can always message us on Instagram and
Facebook, YouTube.
And oh yeah, we're on YouTube.
All the places.
All the
I know,
places,
we're
so
everywhere.
Great.
We are.
And then if
We
you're
are
a
out
business
there.
owner and you have questions that you want us to do some kind of topic, specifically geared towards you, and we'd be happy to do that. So, like I said, we just started out on this one doing classes because, as Val said, her and I teach a lot here, and Delphi has been doing. Delphi's whole business model was based on teaching. Really, to be honest, was trying to get information out to people. Obviously, sort of the goal there is you get to reach a lot of different people.
Yeah. So, like you said, what's the reason? Why would people want to start offering classes? So, like you were saying earlier, it could be a good form of just advertising your presence in the community, or what you do, and word of mouth, but it's basically revenue based as well, right?
Yeah,
you could. Yeah. No,
I was gonna say the obvious thing is obviously to try to increase your business, right, with the revenue. But what we were talking about also is, as Val was saying, it's also a great exposure, right? It's a great way to get people aware of your business. I've talked to Val and I working here. We have the opportunity to talk to a lot of people that own their own businesses, and so we get hear feedback from them. But it's surprising that like if you're a stained glass person and you do commission work and you also do classes, people get commission work from the classes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes
word of mouth, really, and the more people you interact with, the more word of mouth is out there for you, I think, right? So that's one of the reasons, right? Or some of the reasons why.
Yeah, I think so, right? We were saying for the most part.
And for the most part. But then there's also, we find this a lot too when we have people that come from states away, not just local or not even in Michigan, but we have people often that come in from out of state, and typically one of the reasons is they say they couldn't find a place to learn close to them. So I think that's another way that some people get going is, you have friends or you have family and they're real interested in what you do, and so you start by offering some little workshops just intimately for your family, and then you start thinking, well, why not expand on this a little bit and actually turn it into a little byproduct of your business, and then once again you sort of reap the rewards of the advertising and having the word out there for what you do. So
so if we have a lot of customers that do like craft shows or art shows, and so for them, maybe it's that time when you're slower and you're not doing as many craft shows, and so now you have an opportunity to do some classes. I was telling Val earlier, we were talking about it, that I've had people that do craft shows tell me afterwards that that someone recognized them or saw them from a class, right, or saw that they advertised a class but then saw them at the show. And so it's almost like not only is it just awareness, but almost like you're sort of legitimate, right? Like, oh, it's a real business
Right.
because they're online and they teach classes, and oh, here they are in person. So
Yeah, and we talked about too that I don't think there's ever been a better time to promote. I mean, to be able to advertise your whatever it is you want to do with social media. You know, everybody's got the ability to throw stuff up on there and start. I mean, so that's pretty minimal. I mean, so it's not like you're going to have big advertising costs or anything. You can just sort of start like that, and then word of mouth, and then go from there. So that's how
yeah,
we
I
would
liked
do
your
it.
idea. You said about if you're looking at starting, right? I mean, a great way is with just family and friends, right? You do kind of a test class to see what that looks like. We were trying to talk about what different types of classes or how you might approach them. We do, like here at Delphi, for example, we do some classes are project oriented, some are technique oriented, right? Some are like Open Studio, where it's more even looser, right? So it's maybe not just even a project or something they're doing, but you open up space for people to come in. I think all those are great ways of approaching it. But we were thinking that maybe if you're new to this and trying to teach classes, that starting out with project-oriented classes are probably a good way to do that, because for a variety of reasons. One is it gives you a little bit more control of what's going on as far as cost of the class, your investment in it. Are you going to provide all the materials? Are students going to buy the materials? Are you going to provide tools? Are students going to buy their own tools?
There's all kinds of different variations of the theme, right? But I think what you and I were talking about earlier was when you start out, though, maybe simple is best. So don't offer a lot of options. We sometimes around here call them make and take it. So everybody makes the same thing. And then so it means that helps you with your product. That means everybody's going to be using the same amount of product and the same product. So it kind of streamlines your prep, right? And then you can down the road add more things into it. Maybe a more specific, or maybe where people have more options within the main project, or like you said, it's a good chance for lots of people to upsell. If you're making a little fused plate and here's the materials you can use from, but maybe you really like that dichro over there, then you could have, like you say, a little one set price for the class, including those materials. But if you want to add a piece of dichroic or some string, or whatever, that would be available, like you said, as sort of an upcharge. So that's kind of an interesting way people can kind of not necessarily have to stick to the program, but have some other options available.
Yeah, also if you're a teacher, or if you're new to this, or if you're not sure, again, if you have a project that everyone makes the same thing, and Val and I can attest to this, right? From a teacher's point of view, it's a lot easier if you're trying to help, 8 people all do the same project. But if you have 8 people doing 8 different projects, you can see how that, from the teaching point of view, can be a little more hectic. But the thinking is, start out with some simple classes, then you can get something more complicated as you go. I know a lot of people will then eventually get to the point where they're doing more like Open Studio kind of thing, which is, again, it's a great way to use up maybe some scraps or smaller pieces that you have for your regular work. Again, if you're have a studio and you're doing shows or you're doing commission work, I mean, you always have leftover glass of some sort, right? So
roll that material into.
You roll that kind of stuff into these more open studios. You charge a fee that kind of helps cover your time and the material costs and kind of go from there.
And I think starting out just a little more controlled, it won't be long before you'll get feedback too from your students as to what they might be interested, and then you can kind of build from that. So you're not just throwing 5 classes out there that you came up with and not really knowing,
sure, like that.
what the feel is for them. So I think people usually are pretty happy to say gee, I'd really like to do this or that. And I don't know, I think for people who want to, like you say, have an option to use up some of their scraps and, and it's fun. It's kind of a social thing too.
Well, it's really a social thing. I mean, that's one of the things that we don't do a lot of it here, mainly because most of our customers are not real close by, to be honest. But Open Studio stuff is a great way to kind of build community and like I said, you'd be surprised sometimes at the business that you get from that maybe you're not getting it directly in the class, but some of the stuff that comes from it afterwards, maybe they buy one of your pieces because they really admire what you're doing, or again, they commission you to make something. When we were talking, the other thing I thought about was pre-cuts. I didn't bring in any samples, but whether you're doing stained glass or fusing, excuse me, there's a lot of
Pre-cuts. Take a drink. I know you're just driving me nuts. You all right?
Sorry, yeah, I don't know what it was. I woke up, had it this morning. Must be the
Okay.
-5 degree weather.
Okay, so what about the pre-cuts? That's a way to offer upcharging, you mean?
Well, it could be either or, right? Could be prep.
Yeah, it actually could be prep. It could make everything a lot easier, and so everybody's going to do, a piece with a pre-cut butterfly, but they could do some extra. So that's kind of a way it could be all different too. You know what I mean? There's just so many different directions to go. It's like I say, if that's something that interests people, and like you and I've heard that it often does, and then they're a little bit not sure how to start. I think that's a good way to start. Just real easy and really simple, and then build from what you learn from that, right?
Yeah,
can you talk
I think
now?
so. I think I can talk.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it. Not only is it prep. I thought that was a great idea for pre-cuts, right? But
Yeah.
I think you said also upcharge might be another way. So
To
again,
offer it, yeah.
Yeah, you
because-
provide one particular one of these materials, and then of course, if they want to enhance it or do whatever, you mentioned dichroic glass, including that in or including
Yeah.
a pre-cut. So we format our classes. I can tell you here at Delphi, if you're curious, is we try to do most of them where the cost of the class or the tuition would cover the material cost, would cover use of our tools, and then would cover obviously whatever the instructor needs to get paid, right? So if you're the owner, the business owner, it's got to cover your time, right? That's important. One reason, again, for us is that we found that people really like just having to pay, one price,
Yeah.
and then not be necessarily nickeled or feel like they're being nickeled
yeah.
and dimed, once you show up. I think upcharging for other materials, to me, I think that's totally fine.
Right.
That's great, right? But again,
Because then they have an option whether you want to do that or
exactly,
not.
because they still could do the project without having to do that. But you don't have to do it that way. You can. Lots of places will do it where the student is, they pay for the class, and then they come in and pick out what materials they want, and there's a cost associated with that, obviously. Or they bring their own tools. You can
Well, that's
require
the other
them to
thing you're
have
going
their
to
own
have
tools.
to decide. Do you want to provide the tools for people to use, or are you going to have people pre-purchase their tools, or indicate that they will need to bring their own tools?
Yeah, because obviously there's a cost associated with getting the studio set with whatever tools, glass cutters or breakers, whatever, right,
Yeah.
that you might need.
So those are just decisions, right? Decisions
Yep.
that you just make, but it's like I say, I think starting simple is the way to go, and then all that other falls into place.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, so the other types of classes are a little bit more technique oriented, even if they're simple, like if you're a stained glass place and you just want to offer techniques on soldering, right, or how to improve people's soldering. I know for us that's always a big thing around here.
Mm-hmm.
People are always looking to do that better. Or glass cutting, right? A simple glass cutting class sometimes is a really nice way to just get people into your studio. They can see what else you do there. Get them kind of.
Yeah, and it's empowering. Then they feel more confident to do more things, and
Other classes that you might offer.
Right.
Yep. And then I think we touched on briefly the open studio. I think that sometimes is a nice way of again getting repeat customers. So it's nice to. I mentioned the term earlier. I said kind of build a community, right? I think you said it too, right? So it's a nice place for it's nowadays, especially I think it's harder to find in-person live classes, right? You used to find a lot of stuff online. People obviously there's all this, you can find whatever you want on YouTube, right, to learn how to do it. But there's really something to be said about.
We hear it all the time when people come and
Yeah.
say it's just nothing like being present, and seeing things and experiencing and
asking questions that you can get answered right away. But I also say, that there is something about the sense of community, right? I mean, that social aspect of being around other like-minded people that have the same interests as you. I mean, you know, Val and I say it all the time. I mean, you learn a lot. The other students learn a lot from other students, right? I mean, maybe they ask a question that you that you hadn't thought of, and you're like, oh yeah, what a great idea. Or I know as instructors, I mean, we learn stuff all the time from people, like whether it's something that they color-wise or pattern or technique or something they do, and you're like, wow, that's a cool idea.
So if you haven't considered it, and you do have a business or a studio, and that might be something you might want to look into a little bit.
Yeah, you bet. And you can always, again, if you got questions about this, I know we didn't go into a ton of detail. We just really wanted to kind of give out some ideas, and kind of we're doing a little feeler to see how the business to business part goes. But I mean, feel free to reach out to us. I mean, we're happy to offer up advice. We've done it many times.
Might not be good, but it'll be advice from us. That's for sure.
That is for sure. So otherwise, I think that's probably about it.
Yeah,
are we good?
Yeah.
So
We
appreciate you joining us today, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. And as always, if you have ideas for things you'd like to hear from us, let us know.
Yeah, reach out to us.